I'd like to welcome you all here this morning. I'm Ellie Gellard, I'm a Labour supporter. This is the first general election when I'll have a vote. So this is a big election for me, as well as for the country. If Labour is to win this election, we need to get the policies and plans set out in our manifesto out to as wide an audience as possible. In past elections, only a few thousand paper copies of our manifesto were sold, and my sense is that even less were read. How we share our ideas, our policies, and our values is changing. When we last launched our manifesto, YouTube was 3 months old. Facebook and Twitter didn't even exist. Now they are part of my life every single day, and the lives of millions all over the country. So today, we're doing something completely new. We're asking our supporters not just to have a look at our manifesto, but to share it with their friends, and we're making it easier than ever to do so. As you're about to see, the Labour Party has produced a set of animated manifesto films, providing a guide to Labour's future plans, which as of right now, anyone watching can view on YouTube or the Labour Party website. As we speak, Labour is emailing these films out to members and supporters in the audience and all over the country. Everyone who views the films can click through to see further information on the full detail of our manifesto policies. Put simply, Labour is enabling every viewer to paddle, swim, or even dive into the vision set out in our manifesto. So this afternoon, as well as knocking on doors and stuffing envelopes, the job of our supporters is to get the film seen by as many of your friends, colleagues, and contacts as possible. This is a word-of-mouth election. This is a campaign which will be won by people, not posters. It will not be won somewhere else by someone else. It will be won by us. So sit back, watch the 2-minute film, and then share it with everyone you know.
That's Jane, and his wife Jane, and their 3 kids, Jack, James, and Jill.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
You probably know them. They live just around the corner, and they've got plans.
Being a squillionaire would be nice, but I'll settle for taking better care of my family.
All right, then. How does a new industrial revolution sound?
Ambitious.
Very ambitious. A future built on the green and digital industries, creating more jobs and opportunities.
The new industrial revolution? Gran was around during the last one, weren't you?
Cheeky.
So let's keep her going strong with a national care service that cares for the vulnerable in their own homes.
I can go home. I never liked chopped biscuits anyway.
Gran's happy. What about us lots? Mum, can I have a fiver? Please.
Mom, can I have a fiver, please?
Mom, can I have a fiver, please?
Oh, I need all the help I can get.
Every family does. That's why we're helping with more time off for you dads and a toddler tax credit so every child gets the best start. And with police spending more time on the beat, we're helping to make communities safer for families too.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Hey, James, what's the capital of Peru?
Lima,
How many sides is a dodecahedron?
428.
What's the Hadron Collider?
Particle accelerator.
What's a wobble gong?
Shark.
What am I thinking right now?
How everyone deserves a good education with more good schools run by the best head teachers with parents having a greater say.
Ooh, you are brainy.
No, I'm street smart. In it.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Burn out the shows. Support the hedgehog. Hello to the people.
We like people with opinions. You should have a chance to voice them more than once every 5 years. It's active democracy.
So my opinion really counts.
Yes, it really counts. If you want to live in a future fair for all, you can make it happen on May the 6th.
thanks to Ellie, or Bevanite Ellie, as she's known on Twitter. You can follow her on that. It's great to see you all here, and Ellie's absolutely right. This is going to be an election which is going to be us taking out our message online and on the doorstep all around the country. And no doubt you'll see people who'll tell you that Labour's made a massive difference to their life, that the Children's Centre, the Sure Start, has been absolutely fantastic for their children and for them. You'll meet older people who'll say that the winter fuel payment has really made a difference. You'll meet people who've qualified as teachers and nurses, and perhaps you'll meet people who've been part of building this fantastic new hospital that we're in here today. And we're all proud of that, and that is very, very important indeed. But this election and our manifesto is going to be about the future. It's about a future where people can be confident that there will be jobs in every part of the country, that there'll be good services for families, families caring for young children and caring for older relatives, and a future which is fair for everyone, where everyone feels that they've got a fair and equal chance. And also, the election will be a big choice about what it would mean to people if the Tories got in. And that's the choice that lies ahead of people at the election. So this is a quest for the whole team, all around Scotland, England and Wales, talking about our determination and our confidence about the future for Britain. And we're a team that will be taking that message out. And I now want to introduce to you the leader of that team, the leader of the Labour Party, Gordon Brown.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. In 1997, New Labour asked the country for the opportunity to renew Britain. Our hospitals, our schools, our towns and cities. Now, in a changed time, New Labour is once again ready and equipped to answer the call of the future. And for those who say the promises made at elections never come to pass, I just look round at this new building, a new acute NHS hospital that will be open within weeks, a modern building that embodies the timeless ideals of compassion in action. Look at what together we have built. We didn't just fix the roof, we built the entire hospital. And as I've travelled around the country, I've listened and I've heard and I've learned from the people of Britain. And I've become more, not less optimistic about the future of Britain and its potential. The forward policies we set out today are rooted in the day-to-day concerns of the British people. And today I lay before you a realistic and radical plan for Britain that starts with securing the recovery and renews Britain as a fairer, greener, more accountable and more prosperous country for the future. For the road to recovery that we have been travelling is also the road to a better and fairer Britain and future for all. Leave it to our opponents to try to build the present in the image of the past. Our manifesto is written not in the past tense, it is written in the future tense. Because even in the darkest days of the crisis, we never stop thinking and planning for tomorrow. A few days ago, someone asked, where does New Labour stand? What business are we in, past or future? Our answer is as clear as the question was then. We are in the future business. And under my leadership, we will always be in the future business, building a future fair for all. And by encouraging thousands of acts of caring and compassion, our policies at their best can bring hope, make dreams come alive, and meet the aspirations of all those who want to rise. And you know it matters because we're in a new world now. September the 11th changed the security considerations for the world, and that explains our continuing commitment to Afghanistan and our commitment to our dedicated armed forces. So also the financial crisis changed the economic considerations. And this is the first post-crisis vote for our country, and it's the most important vote in a generation. Get the big decisions right now, make the right choices now, and we not only renew our economy, but we renew our society and renew our politics too. And in building the future, Labour will be restless and relentless reformers, reformers of the market and reformers of the state. And so this post-crisis world throws up three fundamental questions, which we will address today in our manifesto. First, how do we rebuild our economy so that Britain can be a country with high skills and modern manufacturing, where work pays, family finances are secure, and government partners business to invest in Britain's strengths? Second, even as we cut the deficit with our announced tax rises and public spending reductions, how do we protect and reform our frontline public services so that they are not take it or leave it services, but give every parent, every patient, every citizen real choice and voice, and put you in charge of the service that you receive? And third, how do we write anew the contract of trust between the public and the public servants, so that we replace a discredited and distrusted politics with one where you, the people, are the boss? Now, New Labour's manifesto answers these questions with a plan for national renewal. In its pages and online, you will find a Labour programme, not setting out empty slogans of change, but setting out who is best for the NHS, who is best for schools, who is best for our young people, who is best for jobs, who is best for our pensioners, for dignity and security in retirement with our new National Care Service. My priority is first of all to secure the recovery. But as that is done, we know we need to move to a different, fairer recovery, a different, fairer economy with broader foundations and with responsibility from all, including at the top. As a result of the decisions taken to secure the recovery, and as long as we see this through, our plan for the future, you, the British people, will be better off. And this is the Britain of our commitment and our vision. A Britain where an active government backs British business with the fastest high-speed rail, the newest green investment bank, the widest and broadest access to broadband for all, the best allowances for those businesses who wish to invest in the future. A Britain where we demand a new culture in the city, with standards in the boardroom and finance that looks to the long-term interests of British business and industry, and safeguards investors, workers, and consumers too. It's a Britain where banks serve the people and not the other way around, where banks pay their fair share to society through an international banking tax. It's a pro-enterprise Britain where we invest in the high-tech, digital, life science, green and creative industries where Britain leads the world, and where we will support small businesses with help for cash flow, with the continuation of the time-to-pay scheme that has already helped thousands of firms survive, and by a one-year rates holiday for businesses for thriving small firms. And it's a Britain not of limited room at the top, but one where all young people can get on, to go to university or college or get an apprenticeship, and where with 1 million more skilled jobs and up to 70,000 advanced apprenticeships and new skills accounts for adults, everyone has a chance to get on. It's a Britain of the family, with a minimum wage rising with earnings. It's a Britain where we have an end to long-term unemployment, new help for first-time buyers, where we build on Labour's record maternity leave and pay with a new Father's Month to help people better balance work and family life. It's a Britain where we have more homeowners, more students, more apprentices, more professionals, more businesses, and a bigger middle class than ever before. And just as we are unafraid to reform the institutions of the market economy, so Labour will always be reformers of government itself. We are determined to halve the deficit, and as we do, we will ensure that every last pound spent on public services delivers the best value for money for you and for your family. I don't believe in take-it-or-leave-it services. I want guaranteed standards for every citizen in every public service, with robust redress if they fail, and with the best taking over those that aren't making the grade. And the central insight of our reforms in this manifesto is that there should be no limit to what the best in the public sector can do. That's why by 2015, there will be 1,000 academies and federated schools in total, where brilliant educational innovators will lead not only their own schools, but raise standards in others as well, and offer personal tuition to those who've been falling behind, a right that will be available for every parent of our primary school children. And in Labour's Britain, every hospital will become a foundation trust, and those that aren't up to the mark will get taken over by a trust that is. And I can say today we will apply the same approach to policing. So if a police force is letting down the local community, another force can come in to protect and serve. And I believe that we write a new chapter in the story of our nation's most treasured institution, where Labour guarantees in law that every patient will get test results within a week if they're at risk of cancer, and where every family has access to a general practitioner that is open in the evenings and weekends. And that's what I mean by public services personal to your needs. But all this and more can only be achieved if we restore the...
That's we have to leave the Labour Party manifesto launch. You can see the rest of the launch on the BBC News channel. Coming up next in BBC...
where we empower people through voting reform, a choice on votes at 16, a democratic House of Lords, and the right of recall. My fundamental belief is that fairness is not just about the distribution of rewards, but about the distribution of responsibilities too. It's fair rules applied to all. And that's why we must build a Britain where no unemployed person can have a lifetime on the dole but will have to accept work, where those who come here contribute to our country, but those who can't or won't don't come. It's a Britain where antisocial behaviour and crime are dealt with quickly, where those who break the rules pay the price, and where if you don't get action, you can take out an injunction at the authorities' expense to secure the justice against antisocial behaviour that you need. So when anybody tells you it doesn't matter who wins this election, or tries to suggest that all parties are the same, just ask them, which is the party of the family promising to protect child tax credits, the child trust funds, Sure Start, and to give all new dads a month with their babies and help you to buy the family home? Which is the party of making work pay, pledging a rising minimum wage and the end of benefits for life? Which is the party of the NHS, offering in return for national insurance legal rights on GP access, waiting times and cancer tests? Which is the party of growth and jobs, with a programme to deliver 1 million more skilled jobs? And which is the party of political reform, offering more democratic change than at any time in 100 years and more? And the answer is New Labour, the party with a plan for the future. And I say to you today, the future will be progressive or conservative, but it will not be both. New Labour is in the fight of our lives, and it is the fight for ours and yours future. And I have faith in Britain, in our people and in our businesses. I'm confident the future is one of prosperity that can be both sustained and shared. I'm confident in the vision we hold and the values that lead us towards it. I'm confident in the team I lead and the promises and policies that we promote. At the heart of this manifesto is the great and common purpose of national renewal. If we are elected to implement it, we will equip the British people for the future. Yes, we are in the future business. We are building a future fair for all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Gordon Brown offering up his opening words for the election manifesto, and said that this will be a manifesto written in the future tense. We are in the future business, because, of course, the other parties will be referring to the fact that this party has been in power for 13 years, and they will say there are no new ideas. So important for Labour, for Gordon Brown there.
It's only fair to take questions from those who weren't standing, so I'll start. They must have something to ask us, so I'll start with Nick Robinson.
Just waiting for the microphone. Thank you, Prime Minister. Happy to stand if you like. Your film at the beginning, let me just make sure I've got the names right, showed Jack, James and Jill. Doesn't every Jack, James and Jill, every Tom, Dick and Harry know that the future involves government doing less and spending less? Yet your manifesto and your speech lists all the new things government will do and hasn't named a single thing that you won't be able to do in the future. And if I may, can I ask you to deal, you sort of dealt with this, but give you a chance to deal with the scepticism the public has about all parties' manifestos, the sense that your manifesto, their manifestos, didn't see the expenses crisis coming, didn't see the economic crisis coming, didn't see the war getting worse in Afghanistan. Is it worth, worth the paper it's written?
It is a long question, but I'll give an answer. Nick. First of all, we've got a 4-year plan to cut the deficit. We've done more than any other country to set out our plans in detail, the tax changes, the public spending reductions, and of course the growth that we will achieve to make that possible. And we said very clearly £11 billion from efficiency savings, £4 billion from public sector pay and pensions, and £5 billion from non-priority areas. I don't think any party could have been clearer, and our party's promises for the future are not based on a flimsy 4-page document that doesn't add up. But you know, Nick, you're right. There's a big issue here about the future of politics and trust in politics. I think most of us here are interested in politics because we want to serve the public and not to serve ourselves. And most people came into politics not because of what was in it for them, but what they thought they could do for other people. And I am absolutely sure that having let the public down, and all politicians must apologise for that, we can build a more open, fairer, more transparent and democratic politics for the future. And I do say to you, Nick, if you look at our manifesto, the proposals we make, the right of recall against MPs who behave badly and Parliament doesn't act, the right to petition the House of Commons and have your views listened to, the right to have a referendum next year to reform the House of Commons and to reform the House of Lords, we are prepared to learn from past mistakes, and we are prepared to put forward bold new proposals. And I would rather be standing on a manifesto that said, here is what we're going to do for the future, than on a manifesto like the Conservatives, who will defend tomorrow hereditary peers and no change in the House of Commons. That's why I say we're in the future business and future change to make for a better democracy. Tom.
Could I just, on page 1.4, there seems to be, I'm just reading the wording of some of your pledges on tax, there seems to be a strong hint of the possibility of VAT going up. At least you very clearly left that door open. Given the nature of the public finances, could you just be straight with the British people today and say, is that a possibility? When might it happen and by how much?
Our manifesto covers exactly the same issues that we've covered in 1997, 2001, 2005. On VAT, we've made a clear issue about not putting VAT on children's clothes or on transport or on newspapers. or on food. We've never actually made any pledge about the VAT rate, but I can give you an absolute assurance. We have not raised VAT since 1997. The only party that has raised VAT in the last 25 years is the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party doubled it from 8 to 15%, then put it up to 17.5%, then put VAT on fuel and power and electricity that hurt pensioners with the fuel bills. That is something we have not done, and it's something that over the last few months, when we had a decision to make about what we did about the deficit, we decided we will put national insurance up, because national insurance is the way that we pay for our health services and our public services, and we will not put up VAT. That was a decision that the Chancellor made in his pre-budget report. Our plans, our deficit reduction plans, add up without having to put up VAT. I would hesitate but suggest that the Conservative Party's plans do not add up without assuming that they will put up VAT.
Sky News. Prime Minister, a Cabinet Office guidelines state, in any case, it is advised that election meetings should not be permitted on NHS premises. You've just claimed that we built this hospital. This is a Labour Party meeting. I was under the impression that all taxpayers ultimately paid for this. And while we're on that subject, this hospital cost 600 million, yet the taxpayers will pay 2.5 billion for it under a PFI. Two entities like the Royal Bank of Scotland and HBOS, the very esteemed entities, isn't that in fact blighting the future of taxpayers rather than offering them the bright future which you've outlined today?
Well, I know, Adam, that the Conservative Party are complaining that we found such a wonderful building to launch our manifesto. And I know that they are texting round the place and probably to all of you to say that this is completely wrong. This is a building that is held by the construction firm that will be passed on to the National Health Service in the next few weeks. And as for our investment in the National Health Service, because we use public-private partnerships, because we've been able to merge public and private finance together, we've built 110 hospital developments in this country in the last 13 years. So we will continue to use public and private finance working together to create the new hospitals of the future and the new schools and the new transport infrastructure. And I do say, look at Britain in 1997. Look at where our hospitals were. Remember that people were waiting for 2 years for operations. And look at what we've managed to work with the Birmingham people and the rest of the world, the rest of the country, to create now. Gary.
Thank you, Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News. Anyone looking at what you've written on VAT in the manifesto, where you're very specific about not extending it, but you're not specific at all about whether you'll put it up, will just think you really are going to put it up. It is the assumption everyone will think when they look at it. And just carrying on Nick's point, could I ask, we are facing this massive debt. It's a word that doesn't feature that many times. It's the elephant in the room in this manifesto. There must be things that people currently get from the state that they won't get anymore. What do we lose in the next 5 years?
First of all, as far as our deficit reduction plan is concerned, it was set out in great detail by Alistair Darling in a budget that was recognised to both add up because of the decisions that we made and was recognised to be fair. I do ask you to consider whether it's serious politics for other parties to present a full-page flimsy document backed up by no figures to suggest that they can find £27 billion of savings. If we had produced that to you at budget time, you'd have rightly dismissed that as neither feasible nor something that was politically sensible for anybody to do. As far as our deficit reduction plan is concerned, I've told you 11 billion of efficiency savings by 2012-13, all costed, all set out, all worked upon by Jerry Grimstone, who's written an article in the Financial Times suggesting what we will do. At the same time, we have reduced our estimates for public sector pay and public sector pensions by 4 billion, and the 5 billion we're talking about is in non-urgent priorities where, to be honest, we're having to cut back on things that we would prefer to keep, but at the same time we have to reduce. So I have to say to you that we have set out very, very detailed plans, but within these plans we are able to maintain and promote and advance and improve our frontline hospital services, our frontline schools, and our frontline police. We do not want the advances that this country has made in healthcare and policing and schools to be set back over the next few years, and we have managed to combine a deficit reduction plan, yes, with national insurance to pay for health, schools and policing, with the protection of these frontline services for the future. As far as VAT is concerned, just let me remind you of the manifestos of 97, 2001, 2005 and now 2010. We said exactly the same thing on VAT. And then look at our record. Our record is not to raise VAT when there have been difficulties, because we want to be fair to pensioners, we want to be fair to all those who would be hurt if we raised VAT now, while we have made a decision next year to raise national insurance for hospitals, for schools and for policing. That is the decision we've made, and I repeat, our plans are costed on the basis of not raising VAT. I would like you to ask the Conservatives whether they have plans that could ever be costed without including raising VAT. Andy.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Andy Bell, 5 News. Prime Minister, in the 2005 manifesto, there were promises about not changing the income tax rates. That was broken with the 50p rate. Aren't people entitled to look at promises made in this manifesto and have serious doubts about whether those promises will be kept as well?
You know, I didn't want to raise the top rate of tax. We had to do it because we had an international financial crisis. Look round America. They have raised taxes for people at the top. Look at other countries that are facing the impact of the global financial crisis, and they have had to take extraordinary measures as well. We had to take that measure because we wanted to be sure that we could have an economic recovery with a deficit reduction plan, and we took the view that those with the broadest shoulders should be able to bear the biggest burden. And that was a decision we made because That was a decision we made not because we wanted to, and not because we wanted to change the policy we'd had for more than 10 years, but because we had to deal with the deficit reduction plan. I repeat on VAT, our deficit reduction plan is costed. It's been set out. It's in great detail, and it doesn't include us having to raise VAT.
But a manifesto promise was broken.
I accept that we had to take the action that was necessary to deal with a world financial crisis, and I do accept, and it's controversial, that we took the decision that those with the biggest shoulders bore the heaviest burden. And I think for those people who've got income above £150,000, the 50p tax rate comes in, but for those with incomes below £150,000, it doesn't. Yeah.
Bob Roberts from the Mirror. Can I go into the detail of the manifesto and ask about police reform?
Oh, that's why I've got the cabinet here, for this detail.
You talk about removing police officers who fail. Does that mean you want them to be fired? Do you expect them to be fired? And what do you expect the reaction of the Police Federation to be?
Well, I'm going to ask Alan to come in, but two things are really important to this manifesto. This is public sector reform taken to a new level. Public sector that delivers personal services to people. Think of your police and how they can serve you personally as an individual, as a family, as a neighbourhood and as a community. And the first thing we want to ensure is that people feel that the police are fully accountable to them, and that's what neighbourhood policing is about. The second thing is, if that police force is underperforming and not doing the job it should, and we've got a national measure by which that is judged, then if there is a better police force next door or nearby that can take over that force, that is what we will do. That is a tough action to deal with a problem if it arises in a police authority. But if an individual is not getting redress when they've complained about antisocial behaviour, And I was much influenced by the Fiona Pilkington case and all the tragedies that befell her family. But if the police is not providing, or the authorities, help to deal with antisocial behaviour, and you're persistently not given the right of redress, then take out an injunction against the authority. We will pay for that so that you can secure justice. Now, that's making the police service personal to people's needs, tailored to what people require, and making us a stronger community as a result. Alan, would you like to add?
Well, I don't think I can improve on your perfect answer, Prime Minister, but... Just two things. First of all, we've introduced standards in the policing pledge that every force have signed up to around the country. So people know the response times of their local police, whether it's an emergency or a non-emergency. They know that the police should be spending 80% of their time visible in neighbourhoods. There's a whole series of 10 pledges that the police have made. And we've got Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary that now produce a report card that the public can see how their police are doing against other police forces in the country. The natural next step to that is to now go into consultation with ACPO and the police authorities and the other associations to say, now, we need to ensure that if a police force is failing consistently, and by consistently we mean year after year, and despite given the opportunities to improve their situation, they're still a failing police force, then yes, we may need to bring in another police force to take over that constabulary, and there may be changes at the top of that police force as well.
So that's action. Thank you, Alan. So that's action for police forces that underperform, action for schools where they underperform, action for hospitals where they underperform, and giving people and triggering rights for the individual citizen and the community to get justice and fair and better service when they require it. Yeah.
George Parker at the Financial Times. Judging by the applause you won for your proposal of a new bank tax, I just wondered whether you thought the Conservative plan to introduce their own bank levy, which would raise £1 billion, is enough. Is £1 billion sufficient for banks to pay their debt to society?
Well, I'm confident, and maybe Alistair wants to say something about this as well, I'm confident that we can persuade other countries to join us in a multinational, a multilateral levy. I believe if banks were consistently having to pay a tax in this country that was not being charged in other countries, it would create a problem for us in the City of London. And that's why we've been working with Germany and France and other European countries, and that's why we're on a parallel track with America to get action to have a consistent levy throughout the world. Look, the banking crisis raised a whole series of questions about how the banks weren't properly capitalized, so we had to restructure them, about how the banks were not lending sufficiently in some areas to small businesses that needed it. But it also raised questions about remuneration and the share of dividends and remuneration in the bank's revenue. We don't believe that you can get a long-term solution unless you get a solution that involves lots of countries. We don't want a race to the bottom, where different tax authorities compete with each other to go to the bottom. We don't want double taxation when you're charged in one country and then charged in another country again. That's why we are taking the sensible course of cooperating with other countries. And out of that cooperation, we will be able soon to make an announcement about the global and international nature of the levy that we're proposing. I think that's the sensible way forward. It's global as a financial system, and there needs to be global action to deal with it. Do you want to end?
I just simply add this, George. The Conservatives, I think, have taken the idea from Sweden, which is something similar. But the Swedish banking system is much, much smaller than ours, and it's pretty well insulated. Whereas the City of London, the British financial system, is truly global. And as Gordon has just said, if you are going to have a tax that works, one that banks can't simply opt out of because they go somewhere else, then you do need international agreement. And that's why, even in the space of the last few weeks, we have made terrific progress, mainly thanks to Gordon's influence with some of the other prime ministers and presidents in the world, where I think we can actually see a way of getting an international levy so banks pay what's due to them. I'll just say one other thing, though. If I was raising a tax on banks, then I think I could think of a lot of better ways of spending the money rather than on a very unfair measure, the married couples allowance the Tories have, which discriminates against children who would lose out through no fault of their own. That just seems to me to be the wrong priority.
I think, George, you will also know that the bank tax that the Conservatives propose, they're compensating the banks by reducing their corporation tax by 3 pence. Now, I don't see the case at the moment for banks that are not got huge investment allowances for reducing their corporation tax by 3 pence. So it's hardly a measure that makes a difference in any big way to the way the banks are financed. Yeah, thank you. Patrick
Winter from The Guardian. I see here that you say you, in the future, will see rising employment and wages, not rising immigration. Does that mean there will actually be a fall in net immigration under a Labour government?
There is a fall taking place at the moment in net inward migration. The fall has taken place over these last 3 years, and we believe that the figures this year will continue to show a fall. We believe also that the measures that we are taking, which ensures that people in Britain have the skills for the jobs that are being advertised, means that we will need less semi-skilled and skilled workers coming from other countries. We've already said that unskilled workers should not be able to come into the country from outside the EU because we have no need for unskilled workers. We're setting now new targets that will mean, for example, that chefs and care workers, many of whom come into the country, we are training people to do these jobs. And as far as university students and college students are concerned, we expect a reduction of around 40,000 in the numbers this year. So you can see that net inward migration has been falling and is falling at the moment. Our point system is the best way of dealing with this, because it means that people know that if they've got a skill, they can come into the country. If they don't have a skill, they won't. And gradually the number of skills that are available for people to come into the country are being reduced as we raise the skills levels of our population. Alan, do you want to add anything? Bring Alan back. You don't need to thank me for my answer this time.
Just the point actually about the economy picking up. I mean, at the moment, no unskilled worker from outside the European Economic Area can come into this country. The door's closed. For those coming in to take skilled jobs, the job has to be advertised in Job Centre Plus for 4 weeks. But the important point we're making there is as the economy picks up, we're now able to identify those skills shortages, and working with the sector skills councils, the business people that represent every sector in the economy, we can prepare for the future. So what we're saying is this is not just a procedure that's proper and right and effective during an economic downturn. It actually helps us to get the skills we need when the economy picks up as well.
It is the point system that's giving the tough control over migration in this country, and I think people recognise that it's a fair system that deals with the needs for skills while at the same time deals with the training of young people in this country to get the jobs that are available. Yeah.
Ellie Gellard from Bloomberg Television. Mr. Prime Minister, another question about the banks. Lloyds Banking Group, the taxpayer is now sitting on a paper profit. I'm sure you'll hope that the same will apply to Royal Bank of Scotland soon. Is there any timetable for selling those stakes, and are what the government would get from those sales factored into the deficit reduction plans?
We never wanted to be the main owners of Royal Bank of Scotland, and therefore the sponsor of a whole series of rugby events and sports events. We never wanted to be the owner of Northern Rock and the sponsor of Newcastle United. We never wanted to be the owner of HBOS and Lloyds, but we are, for the time being, a part owner of these companies. We will gradually move these companies back into the private sector. I think what we've managed to achieve is a situation where, by owning the shares and by charging insurance fees to the banks, we will be able to achieve the purpose of what was our restructuring effort, to have better banking serving the public, but every single penny of money that has gone from the public to help the banks will be returned to the people of this country.
Graham Wilson from The Sun. Prime Minister, are you
If it's not a fair press, we've got a fair audience.
Prime Minister, are you going to take this opportunity to apologise to women suffering from breast cancer who've been very distressed by some of the leaflets they've received from the Labour Party?
Let us be absolutely clear that no personal health information about any voter is known to us. And therefore, we did not send leaflets based on any knowledge of anybody's personal health information. But I do say it's right to tell the public about what we are doing to tackle cancer. And I do say it's right to tell... And I do say it's right to tell families, because one family in every three has someone who at some point during their life will suffer from cancer, what we are doing to make sure that cancer care is better in this country. We have given a guarantee that every single patient will be able to see a cancer specialist within 2 weeks, so that we can remove some of the fear that is accompanying the worry that you may have cancer. We are also giving a new pledge in this new Parliament, paid for by the money we've put into the National Health Service, that anyone who wants and has to have a diagnosis will get that diagnosis done within a week. Perhaps the diagnostic test done in the same day and the results given in the same day, because we are moving a lot of the diagnostic treatment into the community and out of the hospital. Now, I believe over the last few years, as a result of cancer screening, and as a result of the 2-week requirement that a specialist must be available to see you, that is one of the reasons why the rates of survival for breast cancer, as for bowel cancer in this country, are now above 90% for those who get the diagnostic test early and for those who get the screening. And we want to do more in the future. So we will make people aware that there's a huge difference between our promise of a personal guarantee to people suffering or fearing cancer and the Conservative Party, which refuses to make, even now, this guarantee that we are giving to cancer patients in this country. That is a big choice that people have at this election. We know where we stand.
Just to add, as the Prime Minister has said, the 1-week commitment, in my view, is a historic commitment in the National Health Service. It's a decisive step towards a more preventative and personal National Health Service, and it's the right step to take in this decade, given all of the progress, as you can see, that we've made in the National Health Service. The National Health Service is ready for it. And Andrew Lansley is quoted this morning in the newspapers saying that speed isn't all that matters when it comes to cancer. Well, I beg to differ. I think there isn't a family in the country who, if they're worried about cancer, when they get to the door of the NHS, they want immediate access to those test results. So we can make this commitment because of all of the distance we've travelled in the National Health Service, and people know every time Labour has made a commitment on the National Health Service at a general election, we have delivered that commitment in full.
And let me say we will be happy to debate every single day of this campaign our commitment to the National Health Service and the guarantees we make against a Conservative Party that refuses to make any of these guarantees to the people of this country. Andy.
Andy Grice from The Independent. Prime Minister, you made proposals to improve our democracy, the subject of your first statement on becoming Prime Minister in 2007. Why has progress towards them been so slow? And are they being revived now in the hope of winning the support of the Liberal Democrats in a hung parliament?
You know, to be honest, since 1997, we've created devolution of power to Scotland, to Wales, to Northern Ireland. We've introduced a Freedom of Information Act. We've created mayors. We've got a mayor of London, obviously. We've made changes in our constitution, removing the royal prerogative, that Parliament will have the last word on peace and war and on treaties, and big changes have taken place. But look, after the expenses crisis, I realised we had to do more. I and all the cabinet realised that if you don't show people that you've moved beyond the old politics, then people's trust will not be rebuilt in the same way that if we move to the new politics. Now, we're offering a referendum on a new House of Commons and a new House of Lords. We're also offering the right of recall for MPs who misbehave and are dealing in corrupt practices, but Parliament doesn't act. And we're offering a right of redress to the people of this country. I accept that this is the boldest constitutional reform this country will have seen for a century. And I accept that one of the reasons for it is that we must rebuild the trust that people have in the politics and the public service that is given in this country. But I believe it's the right thing to do, and as I've said before, I wouldn't like to go back to Downing Street without a mandate to deliver that fundamental change that rebuilds the bond of trust between the people and the government. And I'm doing this for reasons of principle, not for any reason to do with any expedient relationship with any other political party. I've taken all men. I would like to have a question from... Yes.
Thank you. Prime Minister, in your speech just now, you said that you want to build a bigger middle class. And when you launched this campaign, you said that you came from a middle-class family. Is Labour now the party of the middle classes?
We are the party of everybody on middle income and modest incomes in this country. And we are determined to give them the best deal possible. I cannot see how you can go to a modern election, as the Conservatives are doing, and propose an inheritance tax cut for the 3,000 richest estates in this country at a huge expense, giving them £200,000 each, while 8 million of 12 million married couples that they promised a marriage tax allowance to are not even going to get that married couples allowance. Peter. So yes, we are the party of middle income and lower income Britain. We are the party appealing to middle class voters in every constituency of this country. We have taken this country through the most difficult financial recession we've seen since the 1930s. We've done so without unemployment being as high as it was in the 80s or the 90s. Indeed, it's half what it was in the 90s. And we are now ready to renew the economy for the years ahead. And we're investing in digital, in high technology, in the creative industries, in low-carbon industries. We can create these middle-class jobs of the future that rests on skills and rests on social mobility and rests on providing the best possible education system in the country, and that's what we're going to do. I'll take one final...
Neil Patterson, Sky News. Prime Minister, you're fond of saying that yours is the only party with big ideas, that yours is the only party with fresh thinking. But isn't it the case that the one word which most accurately describes your manifesto is Blairite?
I'm proud of what we've done under Tony Blair's leadership, and I'm proud of what we continue to do. But you know, this is a manifesto about the future. It's about the changes that we need to make in our country for the years ahead. We're looking forwards. We're looking to the challenges that every country has got to meet and how Britain uniquely can be best equipped to meet these challenges. So take public services. We want reforms that create public services personal to people's needs, where people have the trigger in the health service or in schools or in the policing to get the best service possible. Take the economy. We don't take the Conservative view, you walk away from industry. We say, help us create a digital economy. We'll work with business to do it. We'll work with the creative industries. We'll work with biotechnology and science. We'll work with the low-carbon industries to create a better future for this country. So at every point, whether it's politics and new politics, or whether it's the new economy of the future, or whether it's the renewal of our public services, a transformation to make them personal to people's needs, we're thinking all the time about the future. We're in the future business. That's how the Labour Party approaches the challenges of today. We're thinking and planning and equipping this country for the future. Thank you all very much.